There was a big trade in the NBA yesterday. Jaylen Brown heading to the Philadelphia 76ers for the Clippers 2028 first-round pick, as well as the Sixers' own 2031 first-round pick, throwing in a couple of second-round picks as well in that one. Paul George also going to the Celtics. And if you're a Warrior fan like I am, the first thought across your mind was, hold on, why couldn't the Warriors have done that? And that is what we're getting into right now. 888-957-9570. Warrior fans, when you saw that trade go down, were you in the mindset that the Warriors should have done that? Or do you think that that's a deal that just would not have worked out for the Warriors in terms of, again, they're offering Jimmy Butler in this situation along with picks? Would the Celtics have accepted that, do you think? I want to hear from you, the audience. Again, 888-957-9570 is the number to call. Head out to the lines right now. Let's go to Dave in Fresno. He was on this Jaylen Brown trade a week ago. Dave, they called you a madman. Turns out you were right. What's going on, Dave? You're on the roast.
Actually, it was a couple months ago because we were doing hypothetical with Spadoni and Shasky, and I brought up the name Jaylen Brown, and at that time, it was scoffed at. I was like, there's no way he's trading him. And come to find out yesterday, he was to be had for Paul George in a couple picks. And as a Warriors fan, it was very disheartening because it's just another opportunity that they let slip away, in my opinion. And I was listening to Willard last evening, and he was saying that, the time wasn't right to kind of, trade all your assets and make a move like that, which I beg to differ. The Warriors right now are the highest revenue team in the league. So with that, in my opinion, comes a responsibility. And I know we throw around that C word a lot, championship. Would that move make them a championship team, or are they a championship contender? I think we're using the wrong C word. The proper C word is competitive. And I think that's what Warriors fans that's all they're asking for. And getting Jaylen Brown would have made you open up your competitive window, not your championship window, your competitive window. Because when you're competitive, anything can happen. And I just think that, again, this was another missed opportunity because since 2022, they have not filled a competitive roster. I know they made the move for Jimmy, but that was only going to take you so far. I just feel like, again, they have a responsibility to the fans to put forward a competitive roster. And again, this was another opportunity that I mean, you would have to get creative. You probably have to have a third team involved because I'm pretty sure the Celtics didn't want Jimmy Butler. But if you get a third team involved to take on his contract and you can sweeten up the pot. But that's not my job to figure. That's Dunleavy's job to figure out.
Hey, Dave, can I ask you a question?
Again,
Dave, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
My hang up on this is the picks. Like the Sixers, obviously, they sent the Clippers pick and then their own pick. If the Celtics wanted 3 or more future first-round picks from the Warriors in order to get Jaylen Brown, are you still on board with that?
Yes, and why I would be on board with that is that those picks are not guaranteed. But Jaylen Brown does guarantee you being competitive, in my opinion. And those picks, that's a mystery. That's a guess. Jaylen Brown is not a guess. And the Warriors, you're in that echelon. You're like the Yankees. You're the Lakers. The picks. You're not thinking like the Hornets. You're not the Jazz. Your future is. You're already there. You're on a big boat. You're not on a small boat like the Hornets and the Jazz and the Wizards and the Nets. You're the Warriors. You're the highest grossing team in the league. You're not. Your future is not. Well, we got to nail these picks because we can't get players to come play for us. You're the Warriors.
Dave.
Your job is to go get big fish. Stop small fish hunting and go big fish hunting.
Dave, let me ask you a question. You said that Willard said yesterday that they wouldn't attach any picks basically to get Jaylen Brown. Did I have you right there?
He was saying that, the timing now based on the age of the team, he wouldn't mortgage all the picks that the Warriors have currently to get a player like Jaylen Brown, essentially is what he said.
Gotcha.
And I just found that's crazy. Like, what are you talking about? The future is not promised. Jaylen Brown, we know what he is. Like, he was right there. I mean, again, another opportunity Okay, so in 2 or 3 years, you're going to have these picks, and then what? When are you going to start being competitive? Who cares about picks? Fans want to be competitive. That's it. You get into the dance. NBA crazy things. The Knicks won the championship. Nobody thought they were going to win.
Yeah.
You get in there, avoid the play-in. That's all we're asking. Avoid the play-in, be competitive, and let's see what happens. We don't have to throw the championship word out there. Just put a competitive roster. Give Steph Curry some help. Of all the superstars, and name a superstar. They all have help. He is the one superstar.
Yeah.
I know he's old, but he doesn't have somebody to help.
Dave, you're saying it's good stuff. Appreciate your call. Dave thought his take. Listen, I don't disagree with a lot of what Dave is saying. If you're willing to part with the picks, then yeah, your position is obviously going to be the Warriors should have made that deal. If you are more willing to cling on to they should go on to a youth movement, then yeah, you're not making that deal. It's that simple. I think just that. I don't think the Warriors could have sent a like-for-like package of Jimmy 2 firsts and 2 seconds to the Celtics, and the Celtics are picking that deal over what the Sixers are offering. I think a Warriors first-round pick in 2028 does not have as much value as that Clippers 2028 first-round pick. Things could change, obviously. We don't know what the future holds. But I also think just Paul George holds more value right now than Jimmy Butler. We'll see what they get from Paul George this year. He'll be an expiring deal next year where they can try and flip him for someone else to partner with Jason Tatum going forward in the future. I just don't think it's as simple as the Warriors should have sent the same offer out as well, and they would have gotten that deal done. That is where I think the nuance of this situation comes in and why I think it's understandable that the Warriors did not make this move. At least that's how I'm at off the jump there.
Yeah, I think if they were both healthy, Jimmy would be viewed as a better piece than Paul George, personally.
If both were healthy, yes. Jimmy, 2 firsts, 2 seconds for Jaylen Brown.
That's a no-brainer to me.
That's happening, absolutely.
But he's not healthy. And as I said, I do believe that Brad Stevens and the Celtics believe that they are going to contend next year. I really believe that. You don't go sign Mitchell Robinson yesterday if you're trying to rebuild. You just don't. So you have Tatum. You have now Paul George. You know, you've got some pieces. You had Peyton Pritchard, Derek White. But I don't think it'll be enough, Sam. But you know what it's a testament to is we're seeing teams realize that we're not building for a set amount of years where we can go for as many championships as possible. You're building for 1 year at this point because no one's been able to go back-to-back. The CBA has clearly made a change in the league where it's made it impossible for teams to go back-to-back. It almost has been, it's been, 8-9 years now since 2017, 2018. So I think that teams are realizing, you got to strike while the iron's hot. And as we saw yesterday, Philadelphia realized you got to strike while the iron's hot. That tandem that's going on in Philadelphia looked like it was coming to an end prior to that trade yesterday.
And the tandem of which
the Joel Embiid and the process and all that.
Yeah.
That looked closer to coming to an end than it did to adding a piece like Jaylen Brown. And that's why I think it was shocking to people, obviously, right? But now that they did add Jaylen Brown, how are we feeling about the Sixers? I mean, I think they have a pretty good shot.
I think they're very much on the list of teams that could totally come out of the East next year. The East, it's going to be tough getting through those East playoffs next year. We talk about how the West is so tough to get through. We were talking the other day, Carter, about Kawhi going to the East. Is that going to be an easier or harder path for him to get through to the finals right now? I mean, the West right now, obviously the Thunder and the Spurs, they're the class of the West right now. The Nuggets, they're still a pretty consistent threat, though I think there's less years left in their run than more years.
I think they have really fallen off, Sam.
I would not be surprised if they kind of... I don't know if they're in the same tier as the Thunder or the Spurs, but they're very much the best team in the West that could probably challenge those other two. Maybe the Timberwolves, they'll make that leap.
I was going to say, do you kind of put the Timberwolves closer to the Thunder and Spurs or closer to the Nuggets?
I think the Nuggets and the Timberwolves are kind of hovering in their same tier, trying to nip at the heels of the Thunder and the Spurs.
I agree with you.
And we'll see I love this name that our guys on Two Pros and a Cup of Joe came up with this morning. The Snow Time Lakers, with their trio of Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and who's our guy, Walker Kessler. I thought that was a really funny nickname they gave him there. They'll be in the mix. I don't think the Rockets are in that upper tier yet. You look around the rest of the West. I mean, the Blazers, they're going to be better next year. They're not going to be that much better. The West is basically 2 teams deep is what I'm saying right now. Whereas the East, there's a case for the Celtics. There's a case, for the Pistons. There's a case, obviously, for the defending champion Knicks. There's a case for the Cavs. There's a case for the Sixers now. The Raptors are now in that mix. You said, Carter, the Celtics are in that mix still, too. I would agree with you there.
I don't know if I believe that, but I think they believe that, yeah.
I'm saying there are 4 or 5 teams in the East that could probably lay claim to winning that conference, whereas there's probably only 2 in the West. So this is all a long-winded way of saying East is pretty tough right now, the way I see things right now. Again, there's the whole off season that still needs to play out right there. Dave also made an interesting brought up an interesting example about the Knicks. And in terms of, whether or not the Warriors should hold on to their draft picks or not. The Knicks just won a championship in a way that you're not really seeing teams win a lot these days, in that they didn't really do it through the draft. You look at their roster, Carter, their top 8, 9, 10 guys, I think only Robinson was their only drafted guy in that group. Everybody else was acquired via trade or free agency, if I'm not mistaken. That is very different than what we're usually seeing around the NBA these days. Take your top teams right now. The Pistons, they built their team through the lottery. The Thunder, the Spurs, built their team through the lottery. The Rockets, they built their team through the lottery. The Timberwolves, a little bit of lottery, a little bit of trades. But is that, I guess if you're willing to forfeit your picks, if you're the Warriors, the Knicks showed that you can use building through trades and free agency as an avenue to win a championship. Carter, you bring up the whole, going back-to-back is almost impossible in the CBA. Is it possible that, building teams through trades and free agency, that's going to be kind of become in vogue again, because that might be a more, I guess, reliable way to compete for a championship, whether versus making draft picks, hoping you hit on those draft picks, and hoping you develop on those draft picks? Just thinking out loud on that one there.
I feel like it's kind of NFL-like, Sam, where it's like, we're all in on this season, And I think that in the past, people have been like, no, let's get a core together and let's see if we can be good for a run of 5 to 10 years or so. And now I think there's more of an urgency to make moves in free agency, more of an urgency to make big trades like this, because if you go get one, I used this, I think, on the roast, too, is like, I had a friend I told, I said, that Mikal Bridges trade is awful. I mean, they traded 4 first-round picks for him. Does it look so awful now that they're holding a ring?
Yeah, none of those trades mean anything once you got the championship.
Once you get the championship, it doesn't mean a thing. It's all worth it. That is the ultimate goal in sports, is to win the championship. And you can say, well, they didn't get 2. That's a ridiculous statement, right? It's to win a championship, period. And once you get one, you did your job. So, yeah, I think there is something to. I also think, Sam, we're all figuring out still what the CBA is what's the best method, right? This is clearly shaking up the league in ways we haven't seen before. And the Knicks found some gold in the fact that you don't need to maybe draft your team. You can win a championship another way now. Clearly, it's becoming obvious to other teams.
If I really wanted to play the alternate timeline game, not the 2-timeline game, the alternate timeline game, and imagine the reality where the Warriors did make this move for Jaylen Brown, maybe it is 3 first-round picks. Maybe there's some pick swaps in there as well. If it does become an F them picks kind of trade, first off, you are pairing Jaylen Brown up with Steph Curry for the last 2 years of his career. That alone is a good situation for Steph. Jaylen Brown, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. And it still, I don't think, would take you out of the LeBron sweepstakes. You could still use that mid-level to bring LeBron in. That's an incredibly good team. Even with the age of your superstars there and Steph, Draymond, and LeBron, with Jaylen Brown as the cherry on top of that, that's still a damn good basketball team. But okay, what happens when Steph, Draymond, and LeBron are gone in a couple of years? You would still have Jaylen Brown in that 28-29 season. He would probably be extension eligible around that time. You ink him to an extension there. You still have one max slot available in that 2029 free agency class. And in that class, you got Luke as a potential free agent there. I don't think the Lakers let that happen. That is also the year that Anthony Edwards hits free agency. If you are the Warriors, it would not have been that hard to envision a future where you add Jaylen Brown now and then try and set things up to add Ant Edwards after that 29 season. Again, just thinking out loud on what could have happened here if you're trying to make the case why the Warriors should have been in on that Jaylen Brown trade. That's kind of where my mind's going as to how that could have played out. And as I say this out loud, I get more and more into the boat of, yeah, now I kind of do think the Warriors should have been in on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the boat. Look, when you see that trade go through that happened yesterday, I'm in the boat of they should have been on this. And I'm going to play a cut for you, Sammy, of Shams Charania reporting on it. And I think it just speaks to more so why they really, really, really should have been on it.
Sixers new president, Mike Gansey, reached out to the Celtics, made offers in recent weeks. It's been quite some time where these talks seem to have a level of traction because the Celtics had such a high bar on a deal, right? They were thinking, if you're going to trade us Paul George, we need 4 firsts, 5 firsts. We need a player like a VJ Edgecombe. That was the bar that was set early. So there were other teams around the league that might have stopped conversations or moved on to do other deals, but the Sixers stayed with it. Stood around, stayed at the party. They didn't have Irish goodbye. They didn't leave early. They stuck around, and at the end of it, they were the last team standing today. So staying engaged, staying with it, that paid dividends for the Sixers. Now, when you think about it, and Perk makes that point, when you can get a 30-year-old player who's probably got 4 to 6 years left in his prime, potentially at this level, with a 20s Tyrese Maxey, with a 20s VJ Edgecombe, that is scary for the rest of the Eastern Conference.
So they tried to get VJ Edgecombe instead of Paul George in that trade, and the Sixers wouldn't budge on that, basically. And, you know, you hear Shams say there that they were kind of the last team that stuck around, which that does bum me out if the Warriors kind of weren't just checking back here every once in a while on a 28-year-old Jaylen Brown. Like, yeah, I'll say it. That does bum me out, and especially when you see that deal go through for 2 firsts and Paul George. Like, that sucks as a Warriors fan, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I still maintain that an exact like-for-like trade would not have been enough for the Warriors. I don't think Jimmy Butler, 2 firsts, 2 seconds. If it's that versus the Paul George offer that did go through, I still don't think the Celtics choose that deal. But the more we talk this through, Carter, the more I think it becomes more like apparent that Warriors probably could have upped the ante on terms of their picks. I know we want to see a youth movement, and adding a 28, 29-year-old Jaylen Brown to this Warriors team would be considered a youth movement, but it would have given you that bridge star from that we wanted basically Giannis to be this last year, where the guy who, the superstar you pair along with Steph to close out his career, but then also sets you up to add the next superstar post-Steph Curry, whether that would have been Ant Edwards or somebody else. And you kind of passed up on that opportunity now. Now, I don't know how in on the Jaylen Brown trade the Warriors were. I don't know what their talks were like, their conversations were like. Yeah, it's looking a lot like this could have been a missed opportunity for the Warriors and Mike Dunleavy. And if that is the case, Warrior fans, 888-957-9570, is that a demerit on Dunleavy that he was not more in on this trade than maybe they could have been?